the strange. The grotesque. The disturbing.
We open our mouths to partake of the raven's fruit. The raven, and the raven satisfies strong, flowing, deep currents. A desire.
All have a place on YouTube. Twisted minds from across the globe giving birth to unsettling abominations for all of YouTube to see. Abominations that I often revisit to witness splendid horror that only demented individuals can conjure up. To find these abstract and strange creations, the main source to look at would be YouTube. There you can quench your thirst for videos that will leave you confused or disgusted. But times are changing. More platforms rise up to compete with the juggernaut YouTube. With these new platforms comes new opportunities for those who wish to take a gamble for prosperity. TikTok, over the years, has proven itself to be competent enough to garner a massive audience, which, of course, will attract upcoming creators to produce content for TikTok. Once only known for quirky dance videos, the variety of genres on TikTok has expanded exponentially thanks to the actual talented creators bringing their ideas to the platform. So it was an inevitability that the strange videos, typically found on YouTube, would make its way onto TikTok. Allow me to introduce to you a content creator that produces content that can only be described as a fever dream. Undertime Slopper. With the help of AR scanning and a little bit of CGI, accompanied with voices that almost seemed to be taken straight from a text-to-speech program, Undertime Slopper distorts the world around him to create an enriched, lore-driven reality that will surely make you scratch your head, yet have a desire to venture deeper into Albert's forest. Join me as we take a closer look at TikTok's best, Undertime Slopper. Before I say anything else about Undertime Slopper, I must get this important bit of lore out of the way because it's featured in almost all of his videos. I love Undertime Slopper.
I love Undertime Slopper.
In the early days of his account, Undertime Slopper went around live streams on TikTok to get the live streamers to say, I love Undertime Slopper. He got a couple of people to say it, but there was one man who said it best.
I love Undertime Slopper. Well, isn't that a convenient thing? It's also your name. Thank you for being here.
Some might say the middle-aged man said underlying, but I personally think he said underlime. This little hiccup would be the official outro of sorts for almost every video in Undertime Slopper's catalog. So that's why when you watch a video from Undertime Slopper, you'll see the old man say his iconic line.
I love Undertime Slopper.
Undertime Slopper at first wasn't making content that had a certain rhyme to it. Granted, it still had that AR charm to it, but they were typically just random videos. There were little hints of lore sprinkled here and there, though it feels like more of an afterthought than intentional lore. But once Undertime Slopper figured out what his game plan was, we started to get characters, locations, and story arcs. Some of the characters that we hear frequently are Undertime, Simon, Nigel, Albert, Uncle, Nephew, Fly, Roach, and Spider. There are 3 major locations so far introduced into the Undertime lore. We have Albert's Forest, Undertime Kingdom, and the House. All of these characters and locations fall into specific story arcs which I'll go into more detail. So far there are 4 story arcs, which I'll talk about the major one first. Undertime Kingdom versus the Elves. What first began as just simple vandalism turned into all-out war. Undertime Slopper was inspecting his castle when he saw it was completely ruined by graffiti made by the elves. so it's claimed. Enraged by this blatant act of disrespect, Undertime sent the Undertime warrior to hunt down the elves. Little did Undertime know that this would just escalate things rather than solving them. With the Undertime warrior captured, the elves began to pour out of Albert's forest, surrounding Undertime Castle. Quickly, Undertime called upon the viewers to send in videos of themselves fighting the elves. Amassing an army in such a short notice, the soldiers of Undertime Kingdom set out to push back the elven horde. Thus, the elf wars have begun. Unfortunately for the Undertime army, they were outnumbered by the elves with significant numbers. Even as they fought valiantly, the Undertime army were being swarmed by the relentless waves of savage elves. Sensing that Undertime Castle was slowly falling to the elf masses, Undertime knew it was time to call in Simon, their only hope of changing the tide of the battle. Undertime and his army cried to the heavens, "Simon! Simon! Simon!" Their call being so loud that it reached into space. Now it was just a matter of holding back the elf horde to buy some time for Simon to arrive. The message took some time to reach the space station, but once received, Simon was immediately dispatched down to Earth to provide support. Arriving at a critical moment in the battle, Simon swoops in and frees the Undertime warrior. Now that the Undertime warrior was liberated from his prison, both he and Simon halt the elf advance. Seeing that their comrades were being disintegrated by the giant floating air pod, the elves launched a full-scale retreat back into the forest. Undertime Kingdom reigns victorious over this day. While many casualties were sustained on both sides, the morale of the Undertime army stays high as the air is filled with cheers. Undertime Kingdom is safe once again. But how long will it remain safe until the elves decide to mount another assault on Undertime Castle? Only time can tell. Albert's Forest. A magical place filled with quirky creatures that crawled out of an H.P. Lovecraft story, Albert's Forest can be visited by anyone during the opening hours. Just make sure you leave before the forest closes, or else something horrible might happen. Even though we get plenty of videos taken from Albert's Forest, we don't see or hear from Albert himself. The only people we hear, for the most part, are Undertime and Nigel. Nigel being the groundskeeper of sorts of Albert's Forest. He's in charge of caring for the forest while Albert isn't around. It's gotten to the point where we see more of Nigel than Albert that the forest should be renamed Nigel's Forest. Well, what's there to be taken care of in the forest? A menagerie of deformed and quirky creatures that roam around the vast forest. You got talking rocks, sassy cows, sentient trees, Bigfoot, but not the Bigfoot that you're all thinking of, plus many more objects that shouldn't be alive, yet live harmoniously in Albert's Forest. Besides the occasional frog hustle and crime scene, Nigel has it pretty easy over at Albert's Forest. All he really has to do is turn the water on and off and make sure everyone evacuates the forest before closing. Uncle and Nephew. Uncle isn't Uncle's actual name, neither is Nephew Nephew's real name, yet we have no idea what their names actually are. Regardless, Uncle and Nephew are a dynamic duo that play off each other well. They both live in the same house that always seems to be changing. While some might think Uncle is taking care of Nephew, it's Nephew who's actually looking after Uncle. You see, Uncle has a huge weakness for cookies. The doc said that he shouldn't eat too many cookies, but Uncle can't seem to understand that no means no. We go through the cookie arc when Uncle eats one giant cookie. Nephew tried to warn him not to eat the cookie, but like any boomer, Uncle did not heed Nephew's warning and ate the cookie, which resulted in him going into a cookie coma. Uncle wakes up to find himself in a hospital where the doc is trying to show him an x-ray of his insides. There were a lot of cookies in there, that's for sure. But foul play was suspected by Uncle, accusing the doctor that he photoshopped those 6 cookies in his x-ray. Not satisfied with the results, Uncle just got up and returned home, probably not having learned his lesson. Then we have the artist arc, where Uncle and Nephew meet an artist that so happens to be a big fan of their videos. The artist invited Uncle and Nephew to a party that he's throwing. He even offered them to take them to the party in his sussy. car. Bad news for Uncle. When he hops into the car, he's met with a bunch of sentient snacks. Letting his hunger get the best of him, he eats them and goes all loopy from the large amount of sugar in his body. It's definitely fun to see Uncle and Nephew get into mischief. We'll just have to see if they ever meet Albert. The Fly. Who would have thought that a housefly would get its own arc in the crazy world of Undertime Slopper? Anything goes here, so yes. The Fly has lore. Still taking place in the home of Uncle and Nephew, a camera is somehow strapped on the housefly. It's a little hard trying to fly around with a camera strapped to your back, but the little fly manages. The story progresses once Nephew brings home a little plant garden. There, it's where we see Fly zoom in to meet its blind date. Little did the Fly know that its blind date would be a house spider. Obviously things are awkward between the two, but their attention quickly turns to a coffee mug. A little roach seems to be stuck in the coffee, so they go to see if they need help. But to their surprise, the roach is fine. In fact, it's more than fine. With the divine power of caffeine, the roach has a powerful message that he must spread to his other roach brethren, which we get to see thousands of roaches gathering together to hear the word of roach. This particular arc isn't quite finished, I think, so we'll have to wait and see where the story arc leads to. There are other story arcs that haven't been completed just yet, like the cloud arc and the crime scene at Albert's Forest, but it genuinely amazes me that someone can take a picture and go out to the woods to bring that picture to life. If you left Undertime Slopper alone in a room with random objects and a camera, he would bring you a cinematic masterpiece that will have you coming back for years to come. Looking at Undertime Slopper's content really shows off that you don't need fancy CGI like in Marvel movies. All you really need is a compelling story with entertaining characters to tell the story. It cannot be disputed. Undertime Slopper is without a doubt the best that TikTok can offer at the moment. If you're looking for some strange content on TikTok, Undertime Slopper is your man. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next installment of TikTok's Best. Goodbye for now. And I love Undertime Slopper.